Hey guys, today we're going to talk about two pieces of punctuation, the semicolon and the colon. That's a semicolon, in case you didn't know. You see a period and a comma in a semicolon. That's a good way to think about it because a semicolon separates sort of in between the way a period and a comma separate. A period is the strongest form of separation. Comma is the weakest, other than just a space between words. But a semicolon kind of acts between. It separates, but not quite as strongly or as weakly as the period or the comma. Okay, here's the first thing we use it for: separating independent clauses that are closely related and not already separated by a conjunction. An independent clause is just a group of words that can stand alone as a sentence. It's got a subject and a verb. It's a complete thought. So here we have pairs of independent clauses. The river is rising. It is expected to flood. Now you can hear how there's a relationship between those two clauses. So we could separate it with a conjunction. Sometimes it's more effective to do it this way. Maybe for emphasis or style, you want it to be more stark. The roads were icy. I had to drive slowly. Right? They're related. They're independent. We separate them with a semicolon. Sorry, slowing down. Use a semicolon between independent clauses joined by a transitional expression. This structure, this construction that we're going to see, is the most common one to see on the ACT. You have an independent clause here. Let's get the example up here. You have an independent clause. He wants to be a doctor. And then a second clause that follows it with this however transition in there. Before the however, whatever term we're putting in there, we need the semicolon. So independent clause, semicolon, the transitional expression, and then the rest of that independent clause. Now if you're using these as just an interrupter, like you're just sort of dropping it in as a parenthetical, then you're just going to surround it with commas, maybe dashes. But in this case, where it's between independent clauses, you got to have that semicolon in there. And the ACT folks like to include that kind of a sentence in their selections. Use it to separate things that already have several commas in order to avoid confusion. I like using this sentence. Used it today in class. Ask the kids, okay, how many places according to this sentence are we visiting? And they count: Bogota, Colombia, Quito, Ecuador, La Paz, Bolivia, Cusco, Peru, and Detroit. 9. And I say, no, it's not 9. Look again. Give me another number. And invariably somebody will look and they'll recognize that, oh, these are cities and countries. And they count it up again, and it's 5, not 9. We got two rules overlapping. We have items in a series, and then the conventional use of cities with their countries. Right? Both require commas, so you end up with a ton of commas in your sentence. We can use semicolons to separate items in a series when there's a bunch of commas already, so that it looks like this. We flew to Bogota, Colombia, Quito, Ecuador, La Paz, Bolivia, Cusco, Peru, and Detroit. Okay, a lot easier to read and to figure out. You don't have to sort of parse out, okay, is this a country? Is this a city? Where is this? We use semicolons to separate items in a series also. We'll ignore that. Okay, we're on colons now. There's a colon, just 2 dots. Use a colon when a list follows an independent clause. This is probably the most common use of a colon. The meal comprised 5 courses: appetizer, salad, vegetable, entree, dessert. Okay, the meal comprised 5 courses. That's an independent clause. It could stand as it does on its own. Right? We could put a period there and say they were appetizer, salad, vegetable, entree, and dessert. Not a kind of a clunky way to write this out. The colon helps us join everything together, but we want to make sure that we've got an independent clause that precedes that colon. Colon can also be used when we use words like follows or the following. For breakfast, we ate the following: pie, ice cream, cake, donuts, and candy. If the list or complements, don't use a colon. Now compare the previous sentence that we just saw to this. The meal comprised appetizer, salad, vegetable, entree, and dessert. Here we don't have an independent clause in front of our list. We have the meal comprised, and that's it. We need more. We need these other words, appetizer, salad, etc. We need those words to make it an independent clause. So we don't have a colon here. We don't need a colon in this sentence. That's just a bunch of complements. It's a list of things. Just like this. For breakfast, we ate pie, ice cream, cake, donuts, and candy. Right? No need for a comma. We don't want to force one in. These are just complements. Just a list of things. That's what I just said. So we need to talk about that. Before a long formal statement or quotation, we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this one because, one, we don't do this kind of writing in this course. If you're writing a research paper and you've got to do a lengthy quotation, or you're writing about literature and you're quoting the text that you're working with, then you're going to want to know this rule. But for persuasive writing, for what we're doing in the ACT format, no need to worry about it. We can worry about this in the next course when you take my writing class. Between independent clauses, when the second explains or clarifies the first. This was a little tricky because it sounds a lot like the semicolon rule. And in fact, you can often interchange. You can make a choice between whether or not you want to use a semicolon or a colon, because what you end up with are two independent clauses that are related to each other, just like that law, that rule we saw about the semicolon. Here's an example. This car has some great features. It's reliable, powerful, and fuel efficient. That second clause is an explanation of what the first clause was saying. So a semicolon will do that. It'll act like a period. It'll act like a semicolon. In this case, the colon, the suggestion between the two that they're related is a little bit stronger. This car has some great features. That colon there really implies that the next sentence is going to include those features. It's going to talk about what those features are. And we also use colons in certain conventional situations. A couple of these you already know. Time, between hour and minute. Bible chapter and verse. You may not know that between a title of anything, a book, play, CD, whatever, title, and if there is a subtitle after it, we would separate it with a colon, or after the salutation or the opening of a business letter, a formal business letter, we'd use it. Okay, I think that's it. That is it.